Hi guys, today we're going to do another book review Friday. I have to tell you that as I'm going through comments on my previous book reviews, I'm just loving how much you guys seem to be really enjoying these videos of mine and my feedback and opinions on the books that I talk about. So I'm really glad that you're enjoying these series, and we're going to do another one today, and we're going to do another Joanna Lindsey novel. I'm telling you, like, this is pretty much all that I read. But today it's another Joanna Lindsey novel. It's another cringy title, and it is called A Man to Call My Own. So the first thing that I want to say about this is that it is more of her American Western series, whereas some of my top favorites are actually the ones that are based in London, like I've mentioned, more in the England sector rather than the US sector. So I've never been a fan just in general, not even with books, but even though I live in the South. I do get more South than Texas, but I have never really been a country girl. Anything that's Western just doesn't grab me, and I felt the same way when I got these books and realized that they were a Western series. But once you start reading them, Joanna Lindsey just makes you fall in love with it. Makes me want to go out and be in the Western territory. So it's really interesting concept. It's basically about two twin girls who are raised more in New York, where at the time in the 1800s, New York was more civilized and it was still functioning similar to how London was in terms of just proper etiquette and having chaperones with you if you were on a date, things like that. You were always very well behaved. There were servants and things like that. Whereas the way Joanna describes the Western Hemisphere of the US was less civilized. You know, there were brawls and gunfights and saloons and things like that. So not much of a law, you know, thing kind of happening in that territory. So these two twin girls grow up very, very wealthy and with their father, and the father apparently only favored one of the twins and not the other. And so one twin is extremely snobby and rude and just really actually vicious the way, like, it's, you do not like Amanda for quite some time in this book. And even in the end, you're just kind of put off by her character just because the whole time she is just downright awful. She hates her sister, Marion, and that's what this story is about. It's about Marion. And Marion realized long before, because they are identical twins, and Amanda is described to be extremely beautiful. But Marion has decided to make herself look as frumpy as possible. Apparently she has spectacles that are super thick, which make her eyes look bugged out. She pulls her hair back in a severe, like, bun. And she wears frumpy dresses. She hides her body shape, all of those things, because she learned that if she saw a guy she liked, her sister Amanda would purposely try to win him over and even sleep with him and then throw it in her sister's face. Yes, that's what we're talking about here. It hurt Marion for that to happen. She started disguising herself to look as frumpy as possible so that she wouldn't attract men, and that way Amanda couldn't come in and intercept and do all of her little stuff. Well, then it turns out that her father dies and basically says, you can't inherit any of this money unless you are married, and you can't get married without my sister's approval. So he had a sister, which turns out she was a twin. Turns out the dad favored one of his sisters over the other, but that sister passed away. I know, is this getting too much? But so the sister lives in Texas, and so the twins venture off, and that is when Marion finds Chad Kincaid, and that is his name. And he is basically the son of the wealthiest cattle rancher in Texas, but he is on the twins' aunt's ranch to help her, blah, blah, blah. And Marion instantly feels this thing for Chad. And what's interesting is, so does Chad, even though instinctively he finds Amanda very attractive, but something keeps pulling him to Marion. And that is what I honestly love about this. Sometimes I can't stand it when they write the male character to kind of switch females in a way, if that makes sense. I really liked that really from the get-go, even in her disguise, he was still very drawn and attracted to her. And so they had a kiss or two, you know, where, and she would try to confuse Chad too into thinking that she was Amanda, but Amanda was dressed as her. So it confused him a lot, but he felt that he was pretty accurate in whom he was kissing, even though Marion would act like, you didn't kiss me, you kissed my sister Amanda. And because she didn't want Amanda finding out that she liked Chad. But Amanda finds out, because next thing you know, he's trying to teach her to ride a horse. They get the boom boom, if you know what I mean, in the horse stables. And apparently Amanda was snooping in and listening. And Chad was very convinced that he knew exactly who he was with. And then guess what Amanda does? So then the next morning when Chad, because again, mind you, Chad is still a little scared and worried because Marion has tried to convince him that Amanda has pulled her hair back and put on glasses to look like Marion and fool everybody. So his heart though is telling him that he basically made love to Marion and not Amanda. And then the next morning they're having breakfast and Marion's going to basically tell him, like, you know, it was me. Amanda straight up comes down the stairs and was like, oh, and says, oh, it was me, kind of thing. And then Chad is devastated, and the aunt is like, well, you gotta marry her now. You can't ruin her, like, you gotta marry her. And there is a plot twist in this book that is just, it's so shocking. And in the end, the way that she really structured the ending and how Joanna Lindsey kind of takes care of Amanda in a way where her whole life, Amanda, the mean one, has been relying on being the favorite, being the center of attention, having all her money. And they get news from the dad's attorney that turns out the dad was broke and there was no money to be had. But Amanda's like, no, my father confided in me about all his business accounts. I know everything about his business accounts, and his businesses were booming. Like, we're not out of money. I think this attorney is pulling a leg on us. So they all decide that they're going to venture from Texas back to New York and find out what's going on. And let me tell you, what they find out when they get back is such a twist. I've got goosebumps. I don't want to spoil it for you. I really don't. But I will say that the way Amanda handles herself when they find out what they find out and they go back to Texas, it is really good. It is how you kind of want someone like Amanda to realize that her new life in Texas is going to be so much better for her. And it's really hilarious because Amanda the whole time actually doesn't like Chad Kincaid at all. She ends up falling in love with Chad's rival, like childhood rival. They can't stand each other. There's always been a thing with girls between them. And Chad's like, you can have Amanda because at this point the aunt has said you need to marry Amanda for what you did, and Marion isn't speaking up. She doesn't want to tell anybody. She's so hurt that Chad believes Amanda and that he thinks that it ended up being Amanda in the stables, and so she's just kind of keeping quiet about it. But Amanda actually wants Spencer, who is his rival, and Spencer runs a saloon, and then Spencer's like, I want Amanda, you can't have her, and Chad's like, dude, you can take her, she's crazy, she's a nag, like, you can have her. And so they kind of construct this deal that if Spencer can get Amanda to say yes to marry him, then Chad gets out of that engagement. And so Spencer pulls it off, but Spencer also doesn't give Amanda what she wants, so he really is good for her. He kind of makes her earn and work for it, and it's hilarious. I don't know why I find this so funny, but I'm just trying to picture this Amanda character, this rich New York uptown society girl in a Texas saloon, and in the freaking and apparently the way Joanna writes her is that she is just living it up. She is being a hostess in the saloon, and she even like insults their customers, which they all think is funny, and she's just like thriving. She is thriving in this saloon atmosphere of being the hostess, and it just kind of cracks me up that just envisioning her in that environment. But Chad is just so in love with Marion, and they figure their stuff out, but I cannot give you guys the twist because the way that it ends, what Amanda says, what Marion says, it is so good. I hope that you guys are going to enjoy this read, and if you've read A Man to Call My Own, comment, let me know your thoughts. Try not to give away the spoiler if you know what I'm talking about in the end about their inheritance. It is really shady and really effed up. That's all I'm gonna say. So if you guys just need a good book to read, a good place to escape, and you never know, Western may just be your thing too. It definitely in my mind wasn't for me, but then I got desperate and ran out of Joanna Lindsey novels to read, so I was like, fine, I'll go through these Western series, and they're some of my favorites. Alright guys, that is it for today's book review. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I know that there's been a request for me to do a book review on Court of Thorns. That one, I feel like I need to sit down and map out exactly what I want to talk about, what my touch points are going to be, because there's so much content to cover, and usually when I do these book reviews, I don't plan these out. I just grab the book that I recently just read and I just talk about it just from my memory. With Court of Thorns, I want to sit down. I want to almost reread them and make notes as I go for my book review video. So anyway, I will link this book in the description box from Amazon. That's where I get most of my books, Amazon and eBay. They're pretty cheap. They're just a couple of bucks. And yeah, so just in case you're interested in owning the copy yourself. I'm a huge fan of actual books. I don't like reading on a Kindle. It's just not my style. And I also love supporting libraries too. So hopefully you have this option at your library. And if you want to own it, again, in the description box below. So that's it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.